There is a moment in your life that doesn't look like a beginning at all. It feels like something is slipping away. You lose interest in conversations you once enjoyed. You feel distant in places that used to feel familiar. You start pulling back, without fully understanding why. And the strangest part is, nothing outside has clearly broken. But something inside no longer fits. If this has been happening to you lately, this is important, because what you're feeling is not random, and it may not be a phase you need to fix. It may be the quiet start of your best chapter, disguised as discomfort. But there is something deeper here that most people never realize. And if you stay with this, you'll understand why this phase feels so confusing, and why it's actually necessary. If this message speaks to something real inside you, don't rush past it. Some truths only make sense when you sit with them. At first, it feels like disconnection. You notice yourself becoming quieter, more selective, less reactive. Things that once excited you now feel empty. You try to go back to how things were. You try to feel the same. You try to act like nothing has changed. But something has, and it won't let you return. This is where most people get scared, because they think they are becoming cold, or distant, or difficult. But what's really happening is much deeper. You are becoming aware. Carl Jung believed that the moment you begin to see yourself more clearly, your old life starts to feel unnatural. Not because it was wrong, but because it was built around a version of you that was not fully conscious. And once you start waking up to that, you cannot unknow it. That's why one of the first signs your best chapter is beginning is this: you can no longer comfortably pretend. You notice when conversations are shallow. You feel when energy is off. You sense when something is not real, even if everyone else seems fine with it. And that creates distance, not because you are better than anyone, but because your inner world is no longer willing to ignore what it sees. This is where the shift begins. Quietly, internally, almost invisibly. And it starts changing everything. You begin protecting your energy more than your image. This is a big turning point. Before, you may have said yes when you meant no, stayed longer than you should have, explained yourself just to be understood, tolerated things that didn't feel right, just to avoid losing connection. But now, something inside you resists that. Not aggressively, just clearly. You start choosing peace over approval, and that can feel lonely, because many connections were built on who you used to be, not who you are becoming. So when you change, the connection changes. Sometimes it weakens, sometimes it fades, sometimes it ends without explanation, and that hurts. But here is the deeper truth. Not every loss is a mistake. Some things leave your life because they were never meant to grow with you. They were meant to meet you at a different level of awareness. And once you rise beyond that level, they cannot follow. This is where people often go wrong. They try to hold on to what feels familiar, even when it no longer feels right. They go back to old patterns, old people, old ways of thinking. Not because it's healthy, but because it's known. The human mind is wired for familiarity, not truth. And that's why unconscious patterns repeat. Different situations, same feeling, different faces, same disappointment, different beginnings, same endings, until something changes inside. And when that change begins, it usually starts with discomfort. You start seeing patterns you didn't notice before. you realize how often you ignored your own feelings, how often you stayed quiet to keep peace, how often you accepted less than what you needed. And once you see that, it's hard to go back. This is where Jung's idea of the shadow becomes real. The shadow is not just the dark side of you. It is the part of you that was pushed aside to become who you thought you needed to be. The part that wanted more, felt more, knew more, but was never fully expressed, and now it's coming back, not to destroy your life, but to make it whole. That's why this phase feels intense, because you are not just changing habits, you are facing parts of yourself you once avoided, and that requires honesty, the kind of honesty that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. This is also where your loneliness changes. It's no longer just about being alone. It's about not wanting to lose yourself, just to feel connected. And that's a different kind of loneliness, a deeper one, but also a more honest one, because for the first time, you are not abandoning yourself to stay close to others, and that changes everything. Now, here comes the part most people misunderstand. They think their life will improve when the right people arrive, when better opportunities show up, when something external finally shifts. But your best chapter does not begin outside. It begins the moment your inner standards change, when you stop accepting what drains you, when you stop chasing what confuses you, when you stop explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. That is the real beginning. Not loud, not dramatic, but powerful. And here's a simple practice that can help you see this more clearly. Tonight, sit in silence for just a few minutes, no distractions, and ask yourself, what am I still holding on to that I know no longer feels right? Don't rush the answer. Let it come naturally. It might be a relationship, a habit, a belief, a version of yourself. Whatever it is, just notice it. Because awareness is where change begins. And now we come to the deeper shift, the one that reframes everything. Your best chapter is not beginning because life suddenly got better. It's beginning because you are no longer willing to stay the same. That's the real reason. Something inside you has reached a point where it can't go back, where pretending feels heavier than truth, where staying feels harder than leaving, where silence feels more honest than conversation. And that's not weakness, that's alignment. Because the real problem was never just what was happening around you. It was the version of you that kept adjusting to things that didn't align. The version that kept waiting, hoping, explaining, accepting. And now, that version is fading. And that can feel uncomfortable. Because you're stepping into something unknown, a space where you don't fully recognize yourself yet, where your old identity doesn't fit, and your new one is still forming. This is the in-between, and it can feel empty, but it's not empty, it's open. It's where your life begins to rebuild, in a way that actually reflects who you are, not who you had to be. And yes, this stage can feel confusing. You may question yourself. Wonder if you're making a mistake. Wonder if you're losing something important. But sometimes, what you're losing is not meant to stay. It only feels important because it was familiar, and familiarity can feel like safety, even when it isn't. That's why this shift matters. Because for the first time, you are choosing based on truth, not fear. And once that happens, everything starts to change. Slowly, quietly, but deeply. Your energy shifts. Your reactions shift. Your boundaries become clearer. Your intuition becomes stronger. You stop needing constant validation. You stop chasing clarity from others. You begin trusting what you feel, even if you can't fully explain it. And that is rare, because most people stay stuck waiting for permission, waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to change, okay to leave, okay to choose differently. But your best chapter begins the moment you stop waiting. The moment you realize that your life does not need approval to move forward. And that realization changes everything. Because once you stop asking the world who you are, you start discovering it for yourself. So if this has been happening to you, if you've been feeling disconnected, quieter, more aware, more selective, more honest, don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to go back. Don't rush to fill the space. Sit with it, because this may not be the end of something. It may be the beginning of everything you've been needing, but couldn't reach until now. And sometimes, the most powerful chapter of your life begins in silence when you finally stop becoming who you were and start becoming who you've always been.